Get over here. All right, it has been a bad week for you if you're mainstream media. Yesterday's vlog was about Project Veritas successfully defending against the New York Times motion to stay discovery, pending the appeal of the dismissal of their motion to dismiss. And yeah, if you haven't seen that vlog, go check it out. Today's vlog is about Devin Nunes succeeding against a Washington Post and Ellen Nakashima motion to dismiss his defamation lawsuit against the Washington Post. Now, the fact pattern in this is pretty interesting. Back in 2017, Donald Trump made some allegedly baseless claims about the Obama administration having wiretapped the Trump Tower, and everyone said, that's total fake news. Nobody wiretapped the Trump Tower. You were just being spied on through a variety of other means, which didn't include wiretapping, therefore your statement was false. Okay, setting that aside, Devin Nunes at the time specifically took issue and distinguished this idea of wiretapping versus getting caught up in general surveillance, and in that sense disagreed with what Donald Trump was saying about the wiretapping, but did say that it appeared that the Obama administration had been spying on the Trump campaign because they had gotten caught up in surveillance. All right, that's the backdrop. Washington Post reported on this accurately at the time in 2017, making the distinction that Nunes made between wiretapping and getting caught up in general surveillance. 2017. 2020, someone named Michael Ellis is appointed as general counsel for the National Security Agency, the NSA. Michael Ellis also served as the chief of staff for Devin Nunes at one point, and so the Washington Post comes out with what was arguably, if not undoubtedly, a hit piece on Devin Nunes, suggesting that Michael Ellis was appointed at pressure from the White House, and also alleging that Devin Nunes apparently colluded with Michael Ellis in some midnight meeting, which the Washington Post called the Midnight Run, to see documents, to find anything and everything that could support what the Washington Post called the baseless claim about the Obama administration surveying wiretapping the Trump administration. In March 2017, Ellis gained publicity for his involvement in a questionable episode involving Nunes, who was given access at the White House to intelligence files that Nunes believed would buttress his baseless claims of the Obama administration spying on Trump Tower. Devin Nunes did not much like this article, which suggested that he was dishonest, colluding with a recent appointment to the NSA in order to find any evidence to substantiate his baseless claim about the Obama administration surveying the Trump administration in 2017. He notified the Washington Post that this was defamatory and that they should retract the story. Now, the Washington Post did issue something of a retraction or a correction, which, true to form when it comes to fake news media, was no retraction or correction at all, just a Weasley sort of doubling down, where the Washington Post said that the midnight run Nunes asserts was conducted during daylight hours. As originally published, this article inaccurately attributed claims that the Obama administration spied on Trump Tower to Rep. Devin Nunes, or California, rather than to President Trump. Nunes has stated that he did not believe there had been any wiretapping of Trump Tower. This article has also been updated to note that Nunes says an incident known as the, quote, midnight run, end quote, took place during daylight hours. All right, Devin Nunes sues for defamation, and he sues. This ends up in District of Columbia court, or California court, but they're ultimately going to apply. No, it ended up in a District of Columbia court. But one of the bases for the Washington Post seeking the dismissal was that California law applies as relates to retractions, and when the news outlet issues a retraction or a correction, then the plaintiff is no longer entitled to damages, but only special damages. All right, that's a secondary aspect of the motion to dismiss. The primary aspect is, of course, Devin Nunes failed to state a claim. He did not make a claim for defamation, and even if he succeeded in the claim for defamation, he has to allege actual malice, which he did not do. The Washington Post tried to argue that their statements, their description, were substantially true, which did not pass the muster test with this judge, because the judge rightly observed that back in 2017, the Washington Post made the material distinction that Devin Nunes did as well between wiretapping and general surveillance. And the Washington Post, on that distinction, effectively justified or supported Devin Nunes' position in 2017. Come 2020, they are now using terminology like baseless and implying that Devin Nunes was up to no good to find any evidence whatsoever to justify his baseless claims. And the Washington Post itself is ignoring the very distinction that it noted back in 2017. So the judge ultimately concludes, or comes to the conclusion, that Devin Nunes in the motion made sufficient allegations as to the apparent falseness of the Washington Post reporting, because basically the Washington Post is contradicting its own reporting from 3 years prior. And then the Washington Post alleges that, there was not sufficient allegations of actual malice, where the judge also comes to the interesting conclusion that when the Washington Post issues an article in 2020 that contradicts its own findings in 2017, a reasonable jury could potentially come to the conclusion that there might be actual malice reasons justifying this about-face 180, where what Devin Nunes said in 2017 was correct, but all of a sudden in 2020, it's baseless. But Nunes pleads more than just legal conclusions. In March 2017, the Post itself had reported that Nunes had denied President Trump's claims about a wiretap at Trump Tower. In the article at issue here, the Post reported that Nunes made that baseless claim himself, a newspaper's own prior and correct reporting that is inconsistent with its later and incorrect reporting could certainly give the paper reason to seriously doubt the truth of its later publication, just as a source's pre-publication recantation may be evidence that a publisher had reason to doubt the source's original claims. So the judge ultimately said the allegations are there sufficient to survive a motion to dismiss, and Devin Nunes can proceed on his claim. The judge did dismiss the aspect of the claim based on negligence. Ultimately, that is going to be something of a moral victory for the Washington Post, but it's going to be a useless moral victory because, bottom line, Devin Nunes can continue with his defamation claim against the Washington Post and Ellen Nakashima, and it is not California law that applies, but rather D.C. law. Therefore, the lawsuit does not get dismissed, or Nunes is only entitled to exemplary damages, or special damages. Sorry, the dog is distracted. Get over here and stop eating that. Devin Nunes is not only limited to special damages because the judge rightly and understandably came to the conclusion that D.C. law applies, not California law, because when it comes to defamation, the damages occur where the defamation occurs. Nunes operates out of D.C., the attack on his character was read by individuals in D.C. The damages to his reputation occurred in D.C., and therefore it is only normal that D.C. law apply. Therefore, that provision of California law does not apply. Devin Nunes can proceed in his defamation claim against the Washington Post and Ellen Nakashima, and it is going to be yet another lawsuit to follow, yet hopefully another lawsuit where the mainstream media, who is guilty of everything they accuse others of doing, are finally going to be held to account. The amazing thing is, Ellen Nakashima and the Washington Post in 2020 accused Devin Nunes of making baseless claims when it is in fact only the Washington Post and Ellen Nakashima who are guilty of making baseless claims contradicted by their own prior reporting. And it takes a good judge to filter through the nonsense, because a motivated judge could have come to a dismissal of this lawsuit if he or she were so inclined, but a judge who is going to follow the law, follow the facts, and allow these cases to get to evidence on the merits, but more important than that, discovery, is all it takes for justice, hopefully, to prevail for once with respect to these, dare I say it, dare I call them this, yes, fake stream, I just screwed it up. Fake news media, mainstream media, who thrive off of these fake hit piece stories to misinform their viewers and do a great injustice, not just to their viewers, but to the industry as a whole. With that said, if you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. You know what to do. Going to talk about this tomorrow night with Robert Barnes and a slew of other legal stories. And now you know your vlog. Peace.